This is ChainMind, the decentralized AI network built for everyone. Just search ChainMind on Google, sign up, download the app, and you're in. That's it. You've joined the network. Run it on any device, phone, laptop, or server. Why ChainMind? Fully decentralized, fully yours.
Imagine plugging your phone into a car and instantly feeling like the dashboard has become an extension of the device in your pocket, a cockpit that knows exactly what you need before you even ask. That moment of seamless connection is what Android Auto and Apple CarPlay promise, but the way each system delivers that promise is as different as night and day, and those differences could change how you drive, work, and even think about your car. The first place the two systems part ways is in their core design philosophy. Android Auto leans on Google's material design language, which means big, bold type, clear icons, and a layout that scrolls vertically as if you were still looking at a phone screen. This isn't just an aesthetic choice, it gives car manufacturers a toolbox to remix the interface. A luxury sedan can embed its own brand-specific widgets, like a quick access button for a premium sound profile, while an economy hatchback might prioritize fuel efficiency stats right next to the navigation pane. Apple CarPlay, by contrast, mirrors iOS's flat, minimalist grid. Every app sits in a fixed position, the hierarchy is shallow, and the visual language is deliberately restrained. The result is a home screen that looks the same whether you're in a Tesla, a BMW, or a 2016 Honda. For drivers, that uniformity reduces the learning curve. Once you've mastered CarPlay in one vehicle, the next one feels instantly familiar. For developers, however, the trade-off is less flexibility to tailor the experience to a specific vehicle brand. Voice interaction is where those design choices start to feel practical. Google Assistant, the brain behind Android Auto, excels at chaining commands together. A driver can say, "Hey Google, find the nearest electric vehicle charging station, add it to my calendar for 3 p.m., and play my road trip playlist." The assistant parses the request, pulls data from Google Maps, updates the calendar, and hands off the music, all without the driver ever having to lift a finger. Because Google's knowledge graph is built on years of search data, the assistant can also answer follow-up questions like, "How long will the charge take?" without starting a new query. Siri on CarPlay has made leaps in natural language understanding, but it still treats each request as a separate action. You can ask Siri to navigate to a coffee shop, then ask it to play a podcast, but you can't combine those steps in a single utterance. The advantage for iPhone users, though, is the deep integration with Apple's ecosystem. Siri can pull a message from iMessage, read it aloud, and even suggest a quick reply that fits the conversation context, all while keeping the data encrypted on the device. For a commuter who lives in the Apple universe, that continuity feels like a safety net. App availability is another battlefield that shapes everyday use. Android Auto's policies are relatively permissive, allowing developers to create richer media and navigation experiences. Take Waze, for example. On Android Auto, it can overlay lane-level guidance, real-time police alerts, and community-sourced hazard warnings directly onto the screen, giving drivers a hyper-local view of the road that Google Maps sometimes smooths over. Spotify, Audible, and even niche services like TuneIn Radio find a home without too much gatekeeping. Apple CarPlay, however, curates its catalog more tightly. The platform supports big-name services, Spotify, Apple Music, Audible, and Google Maps, but limits navigation apps to a handful, primarily Apple Maps and Google Maps. The tighter control means that every app you see on CarPlay has passed Apple's rigorous safety and UI tests, reducing the chance of a poorly designed interface that could distract you. Yet, it also means that if you love a specialized app for, say, off-road trail navigation, you might find it missing from CarPlay's store, forcing you to switch back to your phone's native screen. Navigation itself is where the philosophical split becomes tangible. Google Maps powers Android Auto's default navigation, delivering turn-by-turn directions, predictive lane guidance, and real-time transit overlays that can suggest a subway line if traffic snarls ahead. Its massive points of interest database means you can ask, find a vegan restaurant within 2 miles, and the answer pops up without leaving the navigation view. Apple Maps, once the underdog, has closed the gap dramatically. Its on-device processing means your location data rarely leaves the phone, a compelling privacy promise for drivers wary of constant cloud tracking. Features like Look Around give you a street-level view that rivals Google's Street View, and the 3D building models in major cities make it easier to visualize complex intersections. The trade-off is that Apple's routing engine sometimes lags behind Google's in predictive traffic, especially in regions where Google's crowdsourced data is richer. Midway through all these technical details, many viewers think the battle is already settled. Either you're an Android person or an iPhone person, and the rest doesn't matter. But here's the part most people get wrong. The real differentiator isn't just which phone you own, it's how the entire ecosystem handles media safety and future-proofing. Media playback, for instance, follows different audio focus models. Android Auto uses a media session approach that lets multiple audio sources coexist. If you're listening to a podcast and a navigation prompt arrives, the system automatically lowers the podcast volume, delivers the spoken directions, and then resumes the podcast exactly where it left off. You can even swipe to switch between music, news, and radio without looking away. CarPlay's model is more linear. Launch a new audio source and it takes exclusive control, pausing whatever was playing before. That simplicity can feel intuitive for casual drivers, but power users who like to blend a news briefing with background music often find CarPlay limiting. On the safety front, both platforms enforce a no-typing rule and dim the display at higher speeds, but Android Auto goes a step further by tapping into the vehicle's CAN bus. If the car's sensors report low tire pressure, a warning can appear directly on the Android Auto screen, right alongside your navigation. CarPlay leans on Apple's Siri suggestions, surfacing calendar events or messages only when the car is stationary, which reduces on-road interruptions but doesn't integrate telemetry data as seamlessly. Connectivity and performance bring the conversation back to the hardware you actually sit in. Android Auto originally required a wired USB link, but recent updates enable wireless connections for Android 11 and newer devices using Wi-Fi Direct. Once paired, the phone and head unit negotiate a high-bandwidth channel that feels almost as fast as a cable, and you never have to fumble with cords. Apple introduced wireless CarPlay with iOS 13. Yet adoption remains slower because both the car's infotainment system and the iPhone must support a specific set of Wi-Fi and Bluetooth profiles. When it works, the connection is rock solid, but older head units sometimes exhibit latency spikes during heavy traffic updates. Performance-wise, Android Auto offloads most rendering to the phone, meaning a flagship Android phone can deliver buttery-smooth animations even on a modest display. The downside is that a low-end phone can become the bottleneck, causing choppy transitions. CarPlay's hybrid approach, where the iPhone renders the UI but the head unit caches assets, delivers more consistent frame rates across a wider range of iPhone models, which is why reviewers often describe CarPlay as feeling snappier on a 3-year-old iPhone. Looking ahead, both ecosystems are planting seeds for AI-driven features that could redefine the driving experience. Google is experimenting with generative AI that predicts traffic patterns by analyzing historical data and real-time sensor feeds from connected vehicles, then offering smart suggestions like a coffee stop that fits your usual morning routine. Apple, meanwhile, is focusing on on-device processing for privacy. Rumors suggest future CarPlay updates will integrate Apple's personal voice technology, letting drivers train a custom voice model that responds to their unique speech patterns without ever sending recordings to the cloud. Both platforms are also eyeing V2X, vehicle-to-everything, communication, which could push real-time hazard alerts directly onto the dashboard, turning the infotainment screen into a safety hub rather than just an entertainment portal. So, which platform should you champion for your next vehicle? For automakers, the decision often mirrors their target market. Brands that court tech-savvy, Android-first buyers may favor Android Auto because its open architecture lets them embed brand-specific widgets and deeper telemetry. Premium manufacturers that prize a tightly controlled, uniform aesthetic may gravitate toward CarPlay to leverage Apple's design cachet and consistent user experience. For everyday drivers, the choice usually aligns with the smartphone you already carry. If you live in the Google ecosystem, you'll likely appreciate Android Auto's multitasking, richer navigation, and flexible media handling. If you're entrenched in Apple's world, the privacy-first mapping, seamless handoff between iPhone, iPad, and Mac, and the predictable CarPlay UI will feel like a natural extension of your digital life. In the end, both systems converge on a single goal: keeping your eyes on the road and your hands on the wheel, while still delivering the information and entertainment you expect from a modern smartphone. If this deep dive helped you see past the surface-level hype and understand the real nuances that define Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, you're already one step ahead of the curve. The future of in-car connectivity is still being written, and as the line between vehicle and cloud blurs, decentralized networks like ChainMind are poised to power the next generation of AI-infused driving experiences. Stay tuned, subscribe, and follow ChainMind to be at the forefront of the intelligent, privacy-preserving road ahead. Your next journey might just be smarter than you ever imagined.